My name is Dr. John Anderson. I've been a doctor for 25 years, dedicating my life to saving others. Over these 2.5 decades, I've seen it all. The joy of birth, the pain of loss, the constant battle against relentless illnesses. My career has been built on ethics, compassion, and an unwavering dedication to medicine. It was a cold, cloudy autumn morning, the kind of day that carries a sense of melancholy. The hospital was relatively quiet, a rare moment of calm. I was in my office, reviewing some charts, when the tranquility was shattered by commotion coming from the emergency room. I glanced out the window and saw the medical team rushing in with a patient on a stretcher. The man was covered in blood, with no identification. Dr. Anderson, we need you in the trauma room immediately. The chief nurse's urgent voice cut through the air. I set aside my mug and hurried to the room. The patient was in critical condition, covered in blood and with severe injuries. The emergency team was trying to stabilize him, but the situation was dire. Upon assessing the injuries, I realized he needed immediate surgery. My colleague, Dr. Matthews, looked at me with doubt. John, we're talking about limited resources here. He's homeless. Maybe we should consider transferring him to the public hospital, Matthews suggested, with a mix of concern and pragmatism. Every life matters, Matthews. Prep the OR, I replied firmly, without hesitation. During the surgery, tension hung heavy in the air. Every second counted, and my focus was entirely on the patient. It was then that I noticed something peculiar on his arm. A tattoo, partially obscured by blood. Something about those lines seemed familiar, but the adrenaline and focus on the procedure prevented me from identifying it immediately. I continued the surgery, every move precise and calculated. It was a race against time, and the team was synchronized like an orchestra. After hours of effort, I managed to stabilize him. The surgery was a success, but relief was mixed with an inexplicable unease. I stepped out of the operating room and removed my gloves with a sigh of relief, but my mind was still fixated on that tattoo. There was something about it that unsettled me, a sense of déjà vu. Perhaps it was just fatigue, or perhaps it was a premonition that this patient would bring more than just a medical challenge. As I watched the patient being taken to recovery, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of something much larger. Something that would test not only my skills as a doctor, but also my emotional resilience and ethics. In the days that followed, Joe, as we began to call him, started showing early signs of recovery. He was sedated, but gradually his breathing became more regular and he began to move his hands slightly. It was slow progress, but promising. One morning, while checking his vital signs, I noticed his eyes flickering and his fingers twitching. He was coming back. Joe, can you hear me? I asked gently, hoping for some sign of recognition. He slowly opened his eyes, still clouded with pain and medication. Where am I? What happened? He murmured, his voice weak. You're in the hospital. We found you unconscious on the street. It's a miracle you survived, I replied, trying to sound reassuring. My name is Jacob, he said, with difficulty. My mind went blank for a moment. Jacob? It couldn't be. I felt a wave of shock and disbelief wash over me. Jacob, Thomas. I asked, almost breathless. Yes, John. It's me, he replied, his eyes fixed on mine. I couldn't believe it. My brother, missing for 20 years, was there before me, injured and vulnerable. A mix of surprise, joy, and confusion overwhelmed me. Jacob, where have you been? What happened to you? I asked, my voice trembling. He took a deep breath, as if preparing to tell a long story. After the fight with our father, I left home. I got involved with the wrong people, trying to find my way. I got sucked into a world of crime and despair. Jacob's words hit me like a punch to the gut. He recounted his involvement with a criminal group that trafficked counterfeit drugs. I was used, manipulated, and when I tried to leave, they attacked me. The tattoo on my arm was a symbol of loyalty to the group. I thought I was doomed, he explained, his voice choked with emotion. Every word from Jacob brought a new wave of emotions. Hearing about the hardships he faced, I felt a mixture of sadness and anger. How could he have gone so far astray? And how did I not know any of this? Ethical dilemmas began to weigh heavily on me. Protecting Jacob would mean obstructing justice, but turning him in would mean losing what little family I had left. Jacob, This is very serious. The FBI is investigating. Keeping your identity secret could cost us dearly. I said, concern evident in my voice. He looked at me with pleading eyes. John, I have no one else. I need your help. I know I messed up, but I'm trying to make things right. Please, help me, he pleaded, gripping my hand tightly. The decision before me was agonizing. Jacob had gotten involved in something much bigger and dangerous. But he was my brother. Family loyalty and ethical values clashed in my mind, creating a whirlwind of doubts and fears. And so, as Jacob continued to recover, my mind wrestled with the implications of everything he had revealed. Each day, the decision of how to handle the situation grew heavier and more urgent. The days passed, and I could hardly sleep. Jacob's recovery was progressing, but my mind was constantly preoccupied with the implications of everything he had revealed. Then, one morning, while reviewing charts in my office, I was interrupted by a firm knock on the door. I looked up to see two men in suits, their expressions serious and impassive. Dr. Anderson, we're from the FBI. We need to talk to you. The hospital suddenly became tense. I escorted the agents to a conference room, trying to stay calm. They began with direct and incisive questions about an unidentified patient who had been recently admitted. We're investigating a counterfeit drug trafficking scheme. We have information that someone involved may be receiving treatment here. One of the agents said, their voice firm and determined. I knew exactly who they were referring to, but I needed to buy time. We have many patients here. I'll need more details to assist you. I replied, trying to appear cooperative, though my heart was racing. The agents weren't fooled. Dr. Anderson, we know you're treating Jacob Thomas. We need to speak with him, insisted the second agent, folding his arms in an intimidating manner. Their words hit me like a blow. Jacob was in danger, and the pressure on me increased with each passing second. He's still recovering. Any stress could be harmful to his health. I argued, trying to protect my brother. We understand your position, doctor, but we're dealing with dangerous criminals. We need to talk to him as soon as possible. The agent insisted impatiently. The ethical dilemmas inside me intensified. Protecting Jacob meant obstructing justice, but handing him over meant betraying him. The suspenseful atmosphere was palpable. Please understand. I'm not trying to hinder the investigation, but as a doctor, my priority is the health and well-being of my patients. I said, trying to maintain composure. Dr. Anderson, we're giving you a chance to cooperate. Don't waste it, the other agent warned, with a threatening tone. As the days went by, I had to devise strategies to protect Jacob while partially cooperating with the FBI. Secret meetings with Jacob became routine, discussing next steps and what to do in case of emergency. Jacob, we need to be careful. They're watching us closely, I warned, concerned. John, I don't know how long I can stay hidden. They'll find me eventually, Jacob said, his voice filled with despair. We have to be smart about this. If they find out everything, it could be the end for both of us. I replied, trying to stay calm. He began revealing more details about the criminal group, detailing the depth of their network and the dangers they faced. They're dangerous, John. They're not just drug traffickers. They're involved in much bigger things. He confessed, increasing my concern. I need to know exactly who we're dealing with. Every detail can make a difference, I insisted, trying to grasp the gravity of the situation. They're powerful people, with connections everywhere. I don't know how we'll get out of this, Jacob said, his voice choked with emotion. The gravity of the situation became clear. I was dealing with something far beyond what I had imagined. The sense of imminent danger was constant. Then, one night, when I went to Jacob's room for our usual meeting, he wasn't there. The bed was unmade, the monitors disconnected. Panic surged through me. Where's Jacob? I asked one of the nurses, trying to control my trembling voice. I don't know, Dr. Anderson. He was here an hour ago, she replied, equally alarmed. Desperation consumed me. I ran through the hospital, checking every corner, every room. He had mysteriously disappeared. My heart raced, my mind flooded with dark thoughts. Finally, I received an anonymous call that confirmed my worst fears. If you don't cooperate, your brother won't see the light of day again. Jacob had been kidnapped by the criminal group. Panic and helplessness engulfed me. I knew time was running out, and I needed to act quickly to save my brother before it was too late. I received an anonymous call. The voice on the other end was cold and calculating. If you don't cooperate, your brother won't see the light of day again. The weight of those words hit me like a ton of bricks. I was terrified, but I knew I couldn't show weakness. The threatening calls continued, each one more disturbing than the last. We know where you live, Dr. Anderson. We know everything about you. Don't think you can deceive us. The real danger to Jacob became increasingly palpable, and the responsibility to save him weighed heavily on my shoulders. I needed help. I remembered an old friend from the police force, Tom Harris, with whom I had worked on some forensic medical cases in the past. I called him, explaining the situation in detail. Hey Tom, I need your help. My brother is in danger, and I don't know what else to do. John, this is serious. We need to plan this carefully. Meet me at my office. Let's devise a plan, Tom replied, his voice firm and assured. The rescue operation planning was meticulous. We discussed every detail, from locating the abandoned warehouse where Jacob was being held to the tactics we would use to confront the criminals. They're dangerous, Tom. They're not just drug traffickers. They're involved in much bigger things. I emphasized, concern evident in my voice. I understand, John. We need to be prepared for anything. We'll bring a well-trained team, but you need to be aware of the risks. This may not end well, Tom cautioned, his expression serious. The night of the operation arrived. Tension was palpable as we prepared. I donned a bulletproof vest, feeling the weight of the situation with every move. Tom and his team were armed and focused. Remember, the priority is to safely rescue Jacob. Is everyone ready? Tom asked, receiving nods of confirmation from all. We approached the abandoned warehouse, each step heightening the anxiety. The place was poorly lit, shadows dancing on rusted metal walls. The silence was oppressive. Tom signaled for us to proceed cautiously. The confrontation began abruptly. Gunshots echoed through the warehouse, and the sound of breaking glass and shouts filled the air. I found myself in hand-to-hand combat with one of the criminals, the adrenaline shock driving my movements. John, watch out! Tom shouted, as he disarmed another attacker. The confrontation was intense, both physically and psychologically. Every second counted. Finally, I managed to break free and ran through the warehouse, desperately searching for Jacob. I found him chained and weakened in a dark corner, his eyes barely open. Jacob, I'm here. I'm going to get you out of here, I whispered, starting to unchain him. John, they'll come back, Jacob murmured, his voice weak. The leader of the group then appeared, a man I recognized from college days. Never thought I'd see you again, John. Always the good guy. Look where that got you, he said with a cruel smile. Release my brother, now, I demanded, my voice firm but fear growing inside me. You think you can just come in here and take the prize? It won't be that easy, he replied with a sarcastic laugh. I fought with all my strength, desperation giving me energy. Tom and his team managed to overpower the leader and the other criminals, but not without difficulty. The group's leader grabbed a gun and aimed it at Jacob. If you take one more step, he dies, he threatened. Panic engulfed me, but I knew I couldn't hesitate. You don't have to do this. It's over, I tried to negotiate, keeping my gaze steady. Tom, sensing the critical situation, moved quietly into position. John, distract him, Tom whispered, barely audible. Listen, we can resolve this without further violence. Release my brother, and you'll have a fair trial, I continued, trying to buy time. That's when Tom acted, disarming the leader in a swift and precise move. He then handcuffed the man while I rushed to Jacob. Let's get out of here, Tom said, helping me carry Jacob out of the warehouse. Each step was a victory, every breath a relief. The danger wasn't over, but at least Jacob was alive, and that was all that mattered at the moment. Jacob was weak but conscious. Thank you, John, you really came for me, he said, tears in his eyes. Of course I came, Jacob. I'll always be here for you, I replied, holding his hand firmly. I knew the danger hadn't completely passed, but in that moment, we were together and safe. Jacob was taken back to the hospital under police protection. When we arrived, the atmosphere was tense, but there was a certain relief in the air. The police officers maintained constant vigilance, ensuring that none of the remaining criminals would approach. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, but at the same time, I knew complications were far from over. The battle was just beginning. John, thank you for everything. I could never have imagined you'd do this for me, Jacob said, his voice still weak but filled with gratitude. You're my brother, Jacob. I would do this 1,000 times over if I had to, I replied, squeezing his hand. However, I knew the truth needed to be told. I couldn't continue living with this burden on my conscience. I decided it was time to disclose everything to the FBI. I requested a meeting with the agents who were investigating the case. Dr. Anderson, what do you have to tell us? Asked one of the agents, with a serious and attentive look. I need to be honest with you. Jacob Thomas is my brother. He got involved in this drug trafficking network, but was trying to get out. He's as much a victim as anyone else, I confessed, feeling a lump in my throat. The agents exchanged glances, clearly surprised. This changes a lot, Doctor. We need all the cooperation we can get to ensure the network is completely dismantled. Said one of the agents, his voice softer now. The formal investigation began immediately. Jacob provided all the information he had, fully cooperating with the FBI. 4 days, he was interrogated, and every detail he revealed helped connect the dots of the vast criminal network. Finally, after weeks of intensive investigative work, it became clear that Jacob was helping to bring down the trafficking network. The FBI offered him a protection agreement, ensuring his safety in exchange for his testimony. Jacob, you'll be safe under our protection. But we need your full commitment, said the lead agent, looking directly at my brother. I'll do whatever it takes to make things right, Jacob replied, determination in his eyes. With the protection agreement in place, Jacob and I began to rebuild our relationship. We spent hours talking, reminiscing about our past and trying to understand how everything had come to this point. John, I'm sorry for distancing myself. I never meant to cause you pain, Jacob said one afternoon, as we sat in the hospital garden. It doesn't matter anymore, Jacob. What matters is that we're here, together. We'll get through this, I replied, feeling a renewed sense of hope. These deep and meaningful conversations made me reflect on the importance of family and the value of redemption. Jacob had changed, and I could see the sincerity in his desire to do the right thing. Eventually, Jacob began working with me, helping to combat medical fraud. His experience and knowledge of the darker side of the system became invaluable to our investigations. John, I never thought I could use my past for something good, he said as we worked together on a complex case. You're making a huge difference, Jacob. We're saving lives and correcting injustices, I replied, feeling proud of my brother. A sense of renewal and hope permeated our lives. We had a new perspective on life and career. Jacob and I were determined to make a difference, to use our experiences to improve the medical system and help those in need the most. And so, we continued our journey, together, facing challenges and celebrating victories. The road ahead still had obstacles, but we knew that together, we could overcome anything. Life had given us a second chance, and we were determined to make the most of it. The days that followed were challenging. The public revelation of Jacob's involvement with the drug trafficking network caused a stir in the hospital. Many of my colleagues looked at me differently, questioning my integrity and decisions. Meetings with the hospital administration became more frequent and intense. John, did you realize the risk you were taking by protecting your brother? Asked the hospital director, disappointment heavy in his voice. I did, but I couldn't abandon him. He was trying to do the right thing, I replied, staying calm but feeling the weight of my words. However, amidst the storm, I received unexpected support. Colleagues who knew my dedication to medicine came to my aid. John, we're with you. We know you've always acted for the good of all, said my colleague, Dr. Emily, her voice full of solidarity. The community also showed support. Patients and families I had helped over the years sent messages of encouragement. This gave me the strength to carry on. You're a hero to us, Dr. Anderson. Don't let this bring you down, I read one of the letters. During these tough times, I had many moments of reflection. At night, after long and stressful days, I sat in my office, looking at old family photos. I thought about the journey we had been through, the challenges, and the lessons learned. I remembered critical moments, like the first time I saw Jacob after so many years. injured and vulnerable. Flashbacks of these critical moments intensified the emotional narrative of my life. The struggles, the victories, and the tears shed. Each memory brought a new understanding of the value of compassion and sacrifice. One night, Jacob and I had a deep conversation about the future and the past. We sat on the porch, gazing at the stars. John, I can't change what I've done, but I can change what I'll do from now on, said Jacob, his voice filled with emotion. Jacob, we all make mistakes. What matters is learning from them and moving forward. Let's do this together, I replied, holding his hand firmly. We promised each other that we would do everything to build a better future. These promises of change and reconciliation brought a touch of hope to our hearts. I reached a crucial decision about my future in medicine. I needed to do something that reflected my new perspective on life and career. I called a meeting with the hospital administration. I've decided to dedicate more of my time to community medicine and initiatives to combat medical fraud, I announced, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. This decision was met with mixed reactions, but I knew it was the right path to take. It was a satisfying conclusion to the narrative that had unfolded over the past few months. In an inspiring conclusion, I reflected on compassion, family, and redemption. I've learned that regardless of the mistakes we make, there's always a chance for redemption. Family is our greatest treasure, and compassion is the strength that guides us in times of darkness, I said, my voice full of conviction. As I bid an emotional farewell, I felt that our story had touched many hearts. I want to thank everyone for being with us on this journey. Your thoughts and prayers have given us strength. We will continue to fight for a better world, together. And so, I leave you with this reflection. What did you think of this story? Leave your comments, like, and subscribe to the channel for more moving stories. Your feedback means a lot to us. Until next time.